Hey, this is Summer Kinard, and you are at the Autism channel. I am just coming to you because it is the week of my release of my big book, Of Such is the Kingdom of Practical Theology of Disability. It is now available wherever books are sold. So, in honor of that, I wanted to tell you about something that I talk about in the book, which is sensory bins. So to add a sensory element to your lessons is probably the easiest thing that someone can do, even if you have another curriculum. So what I'm going to do is today, I'm going to show you 3 things seasonally that you can add during Advent this year, if you just want to add a sensory element. This is not a fancy bin. It is one of those cheap pie holder things you can get at the grocery store, and it's labeled sand toys. This is one I have around the house for my kids, but what you can do, I'm just going to show you what to do with kinetic sand today. So with kinetic sand, you could do something simple like, hey, let's talk about following the star, because it's Advent and the Magi follow the star. So you could do something like this, even though you think, oh, this is not sand or whatever, the star is not sand, but you could use a cookie cutter to make it something you could touch. And then this is one of those little nativity sets that you get at the store this time of year, and you can set it up to where you kind of have a here's some 3 kings coming along, and they're following the star. I think I got one more here. 3 kings, the camel. You could set these guys up here and then let the kids cookie cutter with this. This is a nice thing to do if you have a kid who just needs a sensory element, or you can let everyone do it. It doesn't have to be a small bin. This is just a way to use a smaller amount of kinetic sand. We have a great big sensory bin in my classroom, but this is a way to start small with stuff you already have, so you don't have to use these. Let me move those over. I also have I think the Melissa and Doug one is really popular as well, and I have those, and you can use these guys, whatever. The main idea is you can bring it right into the season and give people something they can really play with and touch and get a tactile input that's going to help them remember whatever you say better. So first thing, use the star cookie cutter, and you can make this the desert that the wise men are walking across, right? Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing I wanted to show you is brought to you by my kids broke my necklace. So this is a pearl that came off of one of my necklaces that my kids accidentally pulled. So you can do something. There's the parable that Jesus gives called the pearl of great price, right? And when you have a lot of sensory material like this, this is laid out flat. Now, actually, this has been played with a lot, so there might be little pieces of paint and things like that in it. You could use something big like that, or sometimes I have a smaller bin. Of course, I forgot to bring it into this room before I started the video. Oops. So I'll just go ahead and keep it in here. But if you have, let's say, one of those bowls that's like just this big, it doesn't matter what size. The point is you can put a pearl in here somewhere and let them dig for it. So Jesus gave that parable, the man who found the pearl of great price. When he found it, he bought the field, sold everything he had to buy the field so he could have it, right? Or the treasure, having the pearl of great price, or the treasure, So anyway, that's something you could do. It's very simple to have a pearl. And so one of the things you can do, even though there's only one pearl of great price, okay, you could even, as a game, you could use other ones, but that kind of defeats the purpose of the thing. This happened to just be because my kids really did break my necklace. I have a quarter in my pocket too, that's random. But just putting one pearl in there and maybe putting other treasures in as well that are not as interesting, like you have to find the pearl, and maybe you could also have other treasures like coins or those toy jewels, which I actually usually have right here in the area. So if you have them out, put them in. I don't have them with me right this second, but that's a really good thing to do. So very simple and straightforward. Put it over there in the corner of your classroom if you need to, and say, put the parable, print it out, maybe stick it on the lid of the bin that you have it in, and say, hey, go find the pearl of great price, right? Something that a kid can do that's meaningful, and it allows them to have that sensory input. Now, one more thing I want to show you. And one more thing, if you're not Eastern Orthodox, then if you're a Western Christian, there's another time that this pearl comes in, and because you have the tradition of St. Anselm. Now, in St. Anselm's writing, Why Did God Become Man? He actually flips the parable on its head and talks about the kingdom of God from God's point of view. And he says, if you had a great pearl of great price and it fell into the mud, you wouldn't throw it away, you would wash it. And so in the Anselm's reading, he says the pearl of great price is human nature, and that God came and saved it and washed it up and scrubbed it off because it's still good. It was just dirty and he cleaned it up. So that's a way of talking about how God's mercy endures forever. That's also something you could do if it's in your tradition. Now, Eastern Orthodox tend to not use anything from Anselm because he was slightly post-schism, and they also don't usually read him. So, but you know, you could totally, any Christian tradition, you could use this method for the pearl of great price, though, even if you don't go with the later version of it. Okay, I'm going to set the pearl aside and show you one more thing. This time of year, there's a lot of little houses. Like, I got these on clearance last year at Target. So there's like all kinds of little houses. They may be wood or ceramic or metal. But if you get some of these little houses, right, you can put them in your sensory bin. Now this one's a little bit small, of course, but a lot of sensory bins, you would put this in a much larger bin. The point is here that if you put these in here, you can act out the story of St. Nicholas. So St. Nicholas, as you know, he is known for the gold coins because he threw coins through the window. And when he did that, to help give a dowry to 3 girls who were not going to be able to live a life in freedom otherwise. So I want to show you something really simple. This is gold paper. Oh, hey, it's me. Hi, my gold paper there. Woo! Hello. The gold paper I just got in a packet at the craft store. So I'm going to use these, a hole punch, and make some gold coins. And some people say it's 9 gold coins. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So I've got 9 gold coins here for St. Nicholas. I just need to turn them upside down. So you can get these little coins. Probably you would do this ahead of time and not put it into the sand so it's hard to get out. But I wanted to demonstrate how simple it is. And you just dig these out. It doesn't matter if you get sand with it, honestly. Little kids don't care. They're going to play with the sand. The nice thing, you can use, like, some people say, why should I use kinetic sand, you know, or whatever brand of sand, the play sand that has the stickiness? I think you should, and the only reason why is it sticks to itself. It's a lot easier to clean up. Having cleaned up a lot of this off of my own floors and off of several Sunday school classroom floors, I would say definitely spring for the more expensive stuff. Buy it a little bit at a time, but get it, because it's just so much easier. Okay, so now we have St. Nicholas and our 9 coins. And they could come through, and the girls are for pretend inside. And this is a St. Nicholas peg doll I got from my my friend's website, Charlotte Riggle. She wrote the book the St. Nicholas Day Snow, which is one of my family's favorite. It tells the traditions of St. Nicholas and the coins, and why some people put it in shoes and some people put it in stockings. It goes back to the story that some variations of the story have him putting it in the stockings. So it's interesting. But, so I got this peg doll from her, but you can make your own or just use a plain peg doll, whatever you want to do. But this is really fun. So you can have St. Nicholas come and the kids can drop the little coins through the window of the house. And little kids are going to be better at this than I am. There you go. We're giving the dowry to the girls so they don't have to get sold. Okay. That's an awkward part of the story, but it's true. Okay, so we got the little gold coins now. So that's something really simple and fun. The other thing that's fun about this is, let's say your classroom had plain wooden peg dolls. And of course I set mine on the other side of the room. We just used some peg dolls in my Sunday school class last week, some plain ones. And the thing about peg dolls that's nice is you can color them with markers or crayons. You don't have to do this fancy painting, okay? That's lovely, but you could also just get a regular wooden one and like put a face on it with a crayon or with a marker. If you do that, let the kids decorate their own Santa Claus, basically, then you can give them, with the help of like one sheet of paper, you can make enough gold coins for a lot of Sunday school kids, probably 100. So that's a fun thing to do. Let them have their own Nicholas and coin set. But this also incorporates the sand, because after they finish their craft or your story, they're going to want to just play. Oh, look, there they are. And whenever the kids really have something like this to touch, it really helps them to be able to do something what's called a sensory anchor. So a sensory or a somatic anchor, excuse me, I said sensory, but it's the same thing. You use these sensory things to make a somatic anchor. And a somatic anchor helps you to form a gut feeling in your body. So the way that your attention works, and I explain all this in my book, the way that your attention works is cumulative. It builds on itself. It builds on the different layers, and it also is progressive. So you get an earlier level of attention, and then you have their later attention. Once you're able to do something like this, where you get their attention with their hands, like through their senses, then they start to build memories this way a lot more easily, and they build gut feelings, which are positive, which then allows later learning and further learning. The other thing that's cool about this is, okay, right now I put, St. Nicholas is in here. Okay, well, another time, maybe this week I'm doing that, and next week I pull out St. Nicholas, and I pull out the coins. Here, let me get those guys out of the way. Okay, and then the next week we're going to do the wise men, and where's my star? Yep, I set the star down somewhere. Here it is. The wise men and the star. Well, the kids are going to remember we use the same bin for Nicholas, and that's okay, because they're going to associate those different feelings and those different stories with the same tactile, sensory, somatic anchor, the thing that they did with their bodies. And then they're going to remember those stories together, and that helps them to remember the time of year. Now, you may say, well, everyone knows what time of year, but actually, no, they don't. A lot of kids who have special needs, disabilities, have a really hard time navigating calendars and time. And part of that is because they don't have a somatic anchor. Writing and just seeing text, that doesn't actually gather their attention if they don't have the earlier level of attention. So even something as simple as playing around with the same sand for Advent is going to help the kids build memories. And if you did this, if you had hold on, I just knocked my pearl into some bin of wise men. So if you were to have the pearl another week, and they come and they have to find that, it's okay. And you say, well, won't they get them confused? No, they won't get them confused. It will build. It will layer. So that's how it's supposed to be. If you look at the Bible and you look at salvation history, there are certain symbols, certain things you can touch that build over and over again, and that forms our memories, and it makes it coherent across our entire lives. So I've given the example before about trees, and this is pretend tree, but I talked before about how trees are in the Bible, and whenever you look across, all of the Bible trees show up over and over again. I gave that on my talk that's on my website right now. So you can go through and see, there's trees in the Garden of Eden, there's the trees, the oaks at Mamre, there's the trees at the fig tree, there's the cross, there's the trees in the kingdom, in the city of God. There's all these trees, right? And they're supposed to layer meaning and story on top of each other. And then after that, you'll see there are people who have stories, the saints have stories that are set around trees as well. And you remember all of those things together through the one marker, the one anchor of the tree. And then later on, you of course have literature, like a lot of people think of the Lord of the Rings and all those trees in there. That is building on this trope in salvation history. It's the same thing. That's one of the reasons it's so memorable. And in Narnia, again, you have a lot of old ideas like covenant, and it uses some different somatic anchors, but it has the same thing. It uses somatic anchors. So this sort of thing of using one sensory anchor, somatic anchor, to build several stories, it actually will not be confusing. It will help to build memories and build connections over time. All right, so just to remind you, here we've got some wise men, we've got the gold coins, here's our Nicholas with his coin there, we've got the house, and we have, where's that pearl of great price? The pearl of great price. So those are some things you can do in Advent. And I hope this helps. Don't forget, my book is Of Such is the Kingdom, Practical Theology of Disability, and it is out now wherever books are sold, October 22nd. You can find it on the Ancient Faith website right away, the Ancient Faith store. Just go to Ancient Faith and look up Ancient Faith Publishing, and you'll see it there if you want to. Because I have viewers all over the world, I don't want to give you the specific URL, but if you look up Ancient Faith Publishing and then you find their store, that will be the best thing to do. That way, if you have a different ending, it won't be confusing. I don't know how international URL endings might be confusing otherwise. Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and I will be talking to you again later this week about other sensory bands and how you can incorporate them into your lessons. And once again, this is Summer Kinard, and I will talk to you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.